But it did happen. And this guy was arrested, was jailed, and he died in prison. So it was given a public holiday. The day was named MKO Day, all of that. If you flip that, what it actually means is that power and money went to war. Money won the election. Power arrested money, jailed money, killed money, and nothing happened. And he got away with it. Everybody with money is holding it in custody. You see that person. That realm. The powerful person does not need to have money. Or whatever the black people have. Everybody with power has all the money. But you can have so much money and not have a single power. And at the end of the day, when you see ideas move in the world, call it Democrats, call it Republicans, call it whatever ideology, call it terrorism, call it Buddhism, call it Christianity, call it Islam, whatever idea is it that is moving in the world, it's not moving because people have a lot of money. It's moving because people understand power dynamics and they know how to curate that power beyond the limits of success. Now, there are people, I can tell you, I've been privileged to study elections in different countries. And the moment candidates begin to talk and organize, we are one of the people that say, this is just hot air and rhetoric. This person cannot be president. It's as simple as that. It doesn't matter how hard he tries. It doesn't matter how he moves. He's not going to be president. Why? Because he's playing the money game. He's not playing the power game. And the people who play the power game, somebody said Donald Trump became president, it was just a lot of funk and noise and just became president. No, that was power. That was power. Just don't become US president just by saying nonsense. In fact, to continue to think so is actually underrating a protocol that is at work. Right? So it doesn't matter what ideas you are trying to push in the world. It doesn't matter whether it's a conservative idea or it's a liberal idea. You have to get some type of story behind that idea that will take it from point A to point B, whatever those points are for different people. Right? This is what borderlessness is all about. And I do pray that by the time we speak to a lot of our voices here, within the short time that we have, we started so late, and even our guest speaker is still struggling to get here. Right? I don't know how long it took some of our people to get here, but somehow we'll navigate this through. So the moment you begin to think borderless, the moment you start thinking about geographies beyond the one you know, beyond the one you were born with, beyond the one nature gives to you, that is when you begin to define your place and your power in the world. Now, don't forget, your greatest enemies your greatest adversaries on the borderless path is not lack of money. It's not lack of a good car. It's not lack of a good house to live in. In fact, on the borderless journey, those are traps. Those are the things that make you feel comfortable and make you feel you are fine, right? Because you could drive some of the best machines in the world, because you could fly first class anywhere you're going or move in a private jet. And so the moment you attain those kind of things, except you are liberated deep in your soul, those things become the definition of your meaning. And they define how superior you are. They define how special you are. They define how powerful you think you are. You just need to be stripped one day of all of those things, then you realize that you are just actually a pack of nothing supported by things. And what should be supporting you is ideology. And before I bring up my next guest, I want you to know that philosophy, in all its beauty, has never changed the world. Never. Go check it, Google it. There is nothing that has happened in this world, good or bad, unto good or unto evil, that has been created from philosophy. Everything in the world, from the most lofty things to the most miserable things, have been created by ideology. Go check it. Go do your research. Right? Christianity, ideology. Islam, ideology. Buddhism, ideology. Capitalism, ideology. Democracy, ideology. Terrorism, ideology. Nazism, ideology. What is it that is really taking the world, that is shaping culture in the world today? It's an ideology. Hip-hop is an ideology. Everything in pop culture that is scaling at the highest level is an ideology. Some businesses that for so many reasons, I will not mention those businesses, but I'll mention some. Google is an ideology. It's not just a vision. In fact, if you go online and you go check, you see that some of the biggest companies you admire don't even have vision statement anymore. Go check it. You may not notice, just changes that are happening silently. All you will see is mission, no vision statement. Because people are realizing that a lot of what we call vision is overrated. And that what is most important is not strategy, it's culture. And culture, they say, we eat strategy for breakfast. So what people are looking for is the way we do things, the way things are done. And that comes down to 5 things, guys. How we live, how we love, how we work, how we play, and how we die. I'll take it again. How we live, how we love, how we play, how we work, and how we die. Everything you will do must be impacting 1, 2, 3, 4 of all those 5 areas. The moment you are not impacting those 5 areas, you will be around, you will not be present. You will be around, you will be doing something, you will be busy. I waited for a child for 9 years, and I didn't have one, and it's not for lack of sex, right? We tried, we followed all the rules, it didn't happen. That's when I realized that activity can be nuisance. That effort doesn't necessarily mean outcome. And science doesn't necessarily mean peace. Because all of those things were obeyed in our quest to have a child. We obeyed systems, structures, biology, science, efforts. They told us when to have the sex. This is when you are most open to the sexual, whatever. This is when, what is it called now? What's the word? Women, you should help me. Sorry, ovulation. You know, this is what we followed. Everything didn't work. The night it finally worked was one of my birthdays. It was my 50th birthday. It was my, what am I saying? It was my 41st birthday. My 41st birthday. I'm 53 now. It was my 41st birthday. And just had a great party, got home. And my wife and I, something popped up. We started arguing. And my wife was wiser in that moment. She said, why are we arguing? It's your day. Come on, let's have fun. That was it. Boom. And that was it. Boom. David showed up. So I'm like, wow. And we didn't know for 3 months. So, but what that taught me is that a lot of effort doesn't necessarily lead to results. There's something called labor loss. And you can put everything into a path and not get a corresponding outcome. Right? But there are higher laws that are existential. There are existential laws that if you understand those laws and you position yourself intelligently with those laws, you can actually begin to manipulate the outcome. And that is what this is all about. Many years ago, of course, I'll round up with this, with my next guest. I was, of course, living in Nigeria. I lived my life in Nigeria. I've walked across Africa, done some work in Europe, and I was a full-blown adult already when I decided that it was time to move my work to the United States. Before I did that, I'd come to that decision 14 years before. 14 years before, I knew that my work will get to this place, and once it gets there, there's nothing in my country that could take me to where I want to go. That if I have to get to that place, I'm going to have to shift from the assumptions that I define my economics and my power until that point. And the nutrient that I really deserve as a human being and as a missionary in the world, those nutrients cannot come to me if I stay within the geography that I was born in. So the world became a necessity. The reason why America was the priority was not because America is the most powerful country in the world. It's not because America has the greatest economy in the world. It was because the agenda that I'm running and the ideology that I'm committed to cannot find wings except I communicate that within the walls or the borders of this awesome great country. Now, if my goal was to play soccer, if that was my mission, to rise to the highest place in soccer, this is not where I'm going to come. I'm going to go to England, I'm going to go to Spain, or Paris, France, I'm going to go to Italy, or Belgium. But you don't come to America to rise to the highest place in soccer. This is not a country for that. So in the same way, what I represented as Italy or the United Kingdom is to soccer is what I represented is the United States to what I represent. And what I represent has continued to evolve, and I've continued to learn more and more as I wake up with people who don't look like me, who don't talk like me, who don't even think like me. And I've had to continue to adjust without losing my essence as an individual and not losing my Africanness, which is very critical, right? But there are some things that I have to compromise. I was talking to somebody and I said many years ago, I think 2018, I said, I want water. I said, what? I said, water. I said, water? Yes, I want water. And then for about 7 minutes, she was trying to understand what I meant by water. Until I figured it out. Water. Water. So I've learned to find some keywords that doesn't make it easy for me to be heard, but I don't ever want to speak like an American because I am not an American. I will never become an American in that sense that Dr. Tam is an American or that Nicole is an American. I won't be that American, but I can share ideologies that pass the test of universality, that is not sensitive to color or race or accent or name, but put a crown on your head regardless that the world can connect with and honor. So Elon Musk wasn't born here, but is communicating a language that the whole world can hear. It's called SpaceX and Tesla. And those languages are universal. And anyone speaking at that level will connect. It doesn't matter what your accent is. It doesn't matter. The World Trade Organization president is a woman who speaks one of the most raw Nigerian accents you can ever imagine. Igbo accent, but there's nothing like Nigerian accent. But Igbo accent in Nigeria, but she's at the highest level. So these things are not the test of technicalities. They are really the test of meaning, essence, significance, and power. So I'm going to play a video right now of a girl who is based out of New York, is driving an idea called Dundun. Dundun is a product made out of yam. I'm not sure many people know what yam is because yam is different from country to country. It's white in Africa, is orange in some parts of America, because I saw something one day, they said this is yam. I'm like, really? This is not yam. Yam is white, But so, but she in the western part of Nigeria, when we say dundun, we mean fried yam. But what she's selling is beyond fried yam. She's just putting it out there, but she's able to adjust the delicacies in such a way that the whole world, people white, green, blue, yellow, are all coming in to eat what she has, to consume what she has. Her vision is to be bigger than McDonald's or any restaurant in the world. I'm going to see the work she's doing. I have another gentleman here and his founder brother. They're running an idea called Vesti. And Vesti is such a little fire that I was privileged to see start. But the millions in dollars that these guys are doing in turnover within a space of 3 years is incredible. They are live with us in this room, and they're going to share their journey and the work that they've done, but most importantly, where they're going. We're going to speak to that. I have a gentleman online and his partner. They are Americans. So these two people I mentioned are Africans who have come to America in a borderless spirit to spread their ideas. Now, we also have Americans who are doing stuff in the world. So there's a guy called Rodney Williams. He's an African American with his partner Travis. They run a company called Solophones. And if you have time, check it out. Solophones is the fastest growing peer-to-peer lending platform in the United States. That is not the excitement. There are a lot of things happening in America. But these guys are investing millions of dollars in Africa. And you need to see the type of businesses that they are pushing and the ideas that they are curating in Africa. There's another gentleman who is also online. His name is
Hi guys, everyone. Well done. No, I just realized that I have people that are watching me live while working. You guys are doing fine. Why is this? Why did this thing stop? Okay, it's not here.
a beautiful lady
Okay, so it's still talking.
in the room as well. She came all the way from Houston to be part of us tonight.
Follow.
And she runs a luxury brand that is interesting in my view. And I've taken time to study the retailing that she's doing, and I find it very interesting. But the most interesting part of that is that she's come. Were you born here? She wasn't born here, but she's here, and she started something, and she's driving it in such a way that the patronage she's enjoying past the limits of culture, past the limits of all of that. And she's doing so well, turning over. She'll talk about that, but she's doing so well, and I'm going to be diving into her unique story of borderlessness. Who felt basketball bullied him at the gutter? I say Sheila stole his joke. Yeah. If you go to the gutters, I will go to the gutters with you. And me, I don't come follow you sit down for the gutter. I will swim. Let's Abalogo. Messi Aigbe. The mother, I said, my children behave like GRV. May they not see any office in Yoruba land. He said, GRV, there is somebody in my industry that I will never forgive. Idris. When he was talking, Idris Abdulkarim. I never said, vote for Tinubu. But she's here, and she started something, and she's driving. A very special guy who flew in all the way from left my mind. His name is Dr. Jason Renville. Dr. Renville speaks to so many things in the world. He's originally from Trinidad and Tobago. Am I correct, Doc? Guyana, forgive me. So he's done incredible stuff in the world. He works at the highest level with people in the White House, in the United Nations, and he's always sitting within the corridors of power and moving within that corridors across the world. He's a person of faith. But more than that, he speaks about a concept that is new in the world. Well, not new in the world, but people are learning newly, because everything we call new is old, happening to new people. There's really nothing new in the world. So he's going to be talking about contraptions. He's going to be talking about timelines. And he's going to be talking about power globally. And I'm going to bring him up to speak to that, speak to numbers. But most critically, Doc is going to be speaking to the next 7 years. And he's going to be sharing ideas on that. By the time we are done with all of that, we'll call it a night. Hopefully, we'll be able to do all of that within the next 2 hours. And we'll be out. Okay? So, my first guest tonight is going to go on a video. Can we go?
In our studio right now.
That's very good.
For very good reason.
Thank you for bringing this back. Ben, where are you? Tell us all about it.
Dundu, where we are. Brand new spot just opened up a couple weeks ago right here on 41st between Lex and 3rd. This is your spot. This is your lunch spot. Nigerian food, authentic Nigerian food. Budusha, how are you, my love? Thank you. I was at a B- when I walked in the door, and I'm at a solid maybe A- at this point. She's filling the line. That's what we call it in fish. She's filling the line. Can you narrate what we're looking at right now? Because everything is so fresh. I'm watching her cook this. It's so fresh and so delicious, so much flavor, and so unique and different. You've not had this before. Take us through. Show us.
Okay, so this is jollof rice.
This is something that everybody says their favorite food on planet Earth is
Yes,
this.
jollof rice is amazing. It's a rice pilaf made with chicken stock, pureed bell peppers, and tomatoes. And of course, we make our own chicken stock from scratch.
Oh,
Okay, and of course, it has some herbs and spices in it.
nice.
So it's Nigerian jollof, which is the best jollof. This is a herb brown rice.
Cool.
It's brown rice. We have parsley in it, and
Take us through a little faster because we're not gonna be able to cook anything.
okay. So this is honey beans. This is honey beans. It's beans. It's naturally mildly sweet. We just add onion and salt.
Love it.
Pepper grilled chicken.
Okay, keep going. What's this?
Akara, which is a fluffy bean fritter.
Oh, I
and
love
this,
that.
Yes, and this is our goat stew.
Oh, goat
This is
stew.
our goat
Cool.
stew. It's
Okay.
perfect.
Authentic.
Yes, we have, and these are our sides. We have sweet plantains. This is moi moi. It has boiled eggs and tilapia in it. Moi moi is a steamed bean cake.
That's what we made in the 8 o'clock hour,
Yes,
right?
that's the one we made.
Healthy, delicious, flavorful. Is it moin moin or moi moi?
Oh,
Because there's an N. I'm looking.
it's moi moi.
Moi.
But the end kind of just fades away.
It's not mumu because
Yeah.
that's something completely
No, mumu means like
dum dum.
dum dum. Yeah. This is eforiro. It has smoked turkey and tried in it.
Okay.
And we have charred carrots. That's a
Oh.
seasonal vegetable.
Oh my god.
And these are our dressings.
These are homemade dressings. You make all these?
Everything from scratch. This is a sweet onion dressing. Goes well with the party bowl, which I'll pick up one for you shortly.
There's a party bowl.
Yes, smoky jalapeno. This is atadini sauce and mango habanero.
Heck yeah. Let's throw things on the grill. Oh wait, we have more over here?
Yeah, we want to pick up a bowl and then go to the grill. Would you like that?
Yeah, but you want to make a bowl?
Yeah, let's
Wait,
pick a
yeah.
bowl.
And then, so then how you doing? You want to throw some things on the grill? Is that cool?
Yes.
You got some chicken going? Is it this chicken, the same chicken?
Yes.
Heck yeah, man.
Show you how to make the chicken.
Okay, and
So
this is an example. You come in and then you get the fresh veggies all here, all the produce.
Yes.
We showed you the giant carrots before. But look at this. This is very important because I go to a lot of salad places and I'm like, yeah, it looks kind of funky to tell.
So this is a good braise. It's a special brand. You have kale, cabbage, carrots, and radicchio in it.
Okay.
It's amazing.
So you can pick your green.
You pick your grain.
Okay.
You pick your greens. I beg your pardon, and then you add your grain. Right.
Okay, I gotcha.
So once you have your grain, you pick one of our 3 proteins.
This.
You go with chicken.
You gotta come to the burbs. I would eat this every day.
So you go with chicken.
Yes.
And then you move to your sides. If you have 4 sides, you pick 2. You get 2 with your bowl.
Nice.
So with the party bowl, you get plantains.
I love a party bowl.
Yes.
Very excited about this.
You get plantains and you get 2 moi moi.
Moin moin.
Moi moi.
Just use your fingers. I'm fine. I trust you.
Say moi moi or lele.
You want that then.
She's extremely careful.
Olele.
I've been watching her. She's excellent.
All right, I'm asking you the same question today. Can you follow a simple instruction? Okay, let's get right into
Let's do
this.
this.
Next to party bowl.
A lot of fried plantains, right?
Okay, let's go to the back.
You're the best. Thank you for lunch. That was very nice of you. We got the moi moi.
This is the moi moi. So once it's ready, what we do is we cover it with aluminum foil,
Yeah.
right?
I did like parents' recipes. What recipes are all these?
These are my recipes. Everything made from scratch. The moi moi recipe is with my stepmom's recipe. Her name is Christy. She's amazing, by
You
the
want
way.
to see in New York?
No, my stepmom lives in Nigeria, but she's the very best.
We only broadcast in Nigeria.
Oh.
It's New York and Jersey, Connecticut, Nigeria. That's our broadcast.
Okay, I'll tell her.
Yeah.
I'll tell her the moi moi recipe. Yeah. It goes in there for 20 minutes and that's it.
You can
And
put plantains.
yes,
Jalil, watch your fingers. I'm very
let's
good
rub
at
some chicken on the
that.
grill.
Do we talk about what's on the chicken here?
Oh, that's our separate grilled chicken. This is boneless chicken thighs.
Yes, thank God for the thighs. We're talking about breast versus thighs. Tony's a big breast guy. Loves the breast. We only do thighs. Oh, look at that. I'm gonna get out of the way so you can just watch this. Look at that.
Of course.
Look at this. All these. So you're just doing this all day. And you've been open for like 2 weeks. How are things?
Very well. People are starting to know we're open, and the office crowd, they've been great. We have people coming back 2 days a week, 3 days a week.
That's awesome.
People just need to know we're here.
You are currently with us at Dundu right here on 41st between 3rd and Lexington. We said it before. Midtown folks. You got husbands, wives, girlfriends.
Everyone.
roommates, whoever's working in this area, whoever lives in this area, who wants something new and fresh and different, this is your spot. Don't worry. You got it. We got it. Everything's fine. You're going to be freaking awesome. The new spot. Come check it out. The food is in the studio right now, so you guys can verify how foul this is. Fresh ingredients, healthy,
Thank you,
and
Jerry.
delicious. And
Delicious.
you may not have every day.
It's so good. It's so good.
Thumbs up from the anchors right now.
I mean, like 18 thumbs up.
Gotta get it.
It's got a nice little kick to it. I used to live over there. If I still lived there, I'd be there every single day. I'm gonna go there after work.
Every day. I'd be here all the time. They have the cake and kale built in. I love it. I'm
So
very excited.
far, so good. Golly,
Moi moi.
my God.
Moi moi of the moi moi.
Yeah. The moi moi is good. Felusha, thank you.
So,
Yeah. Thanks, Felusha. Thanks, Jaleel.
OG says thank you. This is okay. It's a good thing.
it's like,
You right over there?
Come
no,
check it out.
it's like,
Oh my gosh, you got a nice little kick.
See the highlight. It's got some kick.
It's a Doubtfire.
And I'm breaking my fast because I don't eat till 2 p.m.
Look at you.
And
That's
for
how you know
this,
it's
it
good.
is delicious.
That's how you know it's good when OG breaks for fast. You know?
But it's like, it's super spicy. Not super
It
spicy.
is?
For me, I
Oh.
don't eat too spicy, but this is so good. Now that I know that it's there,
Delicious.
so easy to stop by on my way home.
Well, thank you for introducing us to that, Ben. OG, thank you
So
for
good.
not
I'm going to
bringing
give
food
Byron
back.
something. Byron, where are you?
Byron, seriously?
Open up, Byron.
Yeah, we'll get
You
you
know-
some.
I can smell it from here.
Go. Please, everybody, welcome Felusha. She's doing a great job.
You can do better than that. After all you guys saw, I was already hungry. I don't know if you can see me, Felusha. Can you see me?
I can see the crowd. Hello, everyone.
And I see me, people. Okay. I saw some of you grinching when she said best jollof rice. Is there any other one? I don't know about that. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Akin Tijani. I'm just going to be the one interviewing Felusha today. But before we start, is there something you want to tell the crowd? Just welcome everybody. I love your two daughters and the drawings that they have.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Felusha Salami. I'm the founder and CEO of Dundu. Dundu is a fast food service company in New York. We're located in Midtown Manhattan. Our first location is in Midtown Manhattan on East 41st Street. We're about a 1-minute walk from Grand Central Station, which is peak Midtown Manhattan. Dundu started as a small-scale catering company after I graduated from the Culinary Institute of America. I basically took my education and was doing a lot of high-end catering and doing a lot of food tastings, and it slowly evolved from there. We had a commercial kitchen years, we had a farmers market years, and Now we have our first location, and the goal is to be able to scale Dundu, offering the same product and service beyond one location. And of course, jollof rice has to be readily available everywhere, like French fries. That's the goal.
Awesome. That's awesome. We're waiting for you in Houston. If you don't have it in Houston, then I'll question you. Come to Dallas, because I hear something was still great. Yeah. Say, you want to say something?
No, I said very soon in Houston.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. You see, the excitement was more when you said Houston, right? Because we need something to do. I mean, the reason why we're here tonight to talk about the way.
Look how much I love my son. He doesn't even have a penis anymore. Those women online displaying themselves, they're not human. You're a fool if you think that's human. The Jews, they have IQs that are probably 15 points higher than the typical. So they're radically overrepresented. There's no reason to assume at all that the religious enterprise can't degenerate into totalitarian psychopathy, for that matter. It does all the time.
Is that controversial?
Yes.
All right, there is a doomsday clock that we use to track how close we are to nuclear annihilation. The closer to midnight, theoretically, the higher the risk. If we had a doomsday clock for how close we are to a totalitarian takeover of the West, how close to midnight would it be?
It depends on what we decide to do. The opportunity's there for a pervasive totalitarian state, the likes of which we can hardly imagine, instituted with a rapidity we can hardly conceive of. That's there. It's right there in front of us. So that's the Eye of Sauron, by the way.
Why?
Well, if you dispense with God, you create a Tower of Babel, and that was what was represented in The Lord of the Rings as the Tower of Sauron, technological tower. And what was on the top of it?
A big eye.
That could see everything. Exactly. So if you don't have, this is one way of thinking about it, if you forgo your relationship with the omniscient, that's a good way of thinking about it, you'll create a technology that replicates that for you, except there'll be nothing about it that will be your friend, and it will watch everything you do. No matter how hard you try to make yourself invisible, let's say, with the ring of power.
Okay, so I want to understand what is the proclivity in the human soul that leads us back to this, and let me give you a little bit of context, and then go into it. So you introduced me to Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
Yeah.
I actually read the Gulag Archipelago. That sent me on a terrifying journey of reading about every totalitarian state that I could get my hands on. Ended up really scaring me about how humans can break bad in a way that I felt I was looking around and seeing people trying to gobble up power, top-down authority, a sense of, I know what's right, and therefore you should do what I say. And even when it comes in the package of, oh, I'm going to save you, like Mao's China.
It's usually when the package it comes in.
Yeah, and yet kills 100+ million people. So is it only darkness in the human soul? Is it only pride, or is there something else?
It's the eternal spirit of pride, allied with deceit and resentment and arrogance. That's the spirit that Milton characterized in Paradise Lost. Is it only human? No, clearly not. It exists.
Not only human. What do you mean?
Well, it'll be there long after you are. It's immortal in a way. That's a way of thinking about it.
But it feels like it would propagate only through the human mind.
What do you mean only?
That there is no other option. I mean, we could get into AI, but I want to segment this out. The reason I want to tease this apart is I believe that people are possessed by ideas, that if
they allow themselves to become possessed by ideas, they invite them in,
even better. People invite in ideas. Those ideas are going to govern the quality of their life, and then as enough of us aggregate around good or bad ideas, the quality of our lives get better or worse.
That's the war of principalities.
So
that's right.
What I want people to understand is Solzhenitsyn's idea of the line between good and evil runs through the heart of every man. We all have this temptation towards totalitarianism, born of pride.
Especially smart people.
So how do we avoid it?
Fear. Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Well,
what is God then?
The antithesis of the spirit of totalitarian pride.
Can I simplify that? So
well, imagine this. Okay, sure. Imagine this. Imagine that. Here's a form of hell. Auschwitz guard, enjoying his job. Okay, now, I think it's fair to say that your experience exposing yourself to such things has convinced you that there's such a thing as evil. Okay, whatever is farthest in the opposite direction, that's God. What is that? Well, that's not a simple thing to say. I mean, God is ineffable. God is the ineffable spirit that unites all. That's a good way of thinking about it. So what does that mean? Well, it means an endless number of things, right? Many of which can't be formulated in words, much of which is directly experienced, embodied, imagined, felt, motivated, all of that, not just words. It's certainly not something that can be encapsulated in a set of declarative statements, which is partly what the West is confused about. We think that belief in God is adherence to a statable description of God or a creed. That's not what it is. That's a very small fragment of what it is, just as our verbal knowledge is a small fragment of our totality.
Can I give you what I think you're saying in my language and tell me if I'm getting correct? Okay, everyone's going to be familiar with the idea of the madness of crowds, and there is something terrifying. If you've ever been around a group that goes from a normal group and they snap over into fighting or whatever, you feel
short-term mob.
Yeah, you feel a spirit overcome them, where they are linked, and it changes something in the way that they are processing the inputs from their environment.
Definitely, it changes their perceptual frame. Yes,
perfect.
It changes their emotions. It changes what they see. It changes what they're aiming at, even unconsciously. It's no different than, in some ways, it's no different than the spirit that unites a crowd when it leaps to its feet spontaneously after a particularly brilliant goal. Right? That's also a form of possession, although much more positive form of possession, because that's a celebration of the ability to hit the mark, which is the opposite of sin. Right? Sin means to miss the mark. There's 3 separate derivations of the word sin that come from archery. Yeah. So that's what people are doing in the stadium, is they're allowing themselves to be possessed by the spirit that hits the target brilliantly. Right? All together, collectively. It's a form of worship.
What's interesting in that, so let's put 2 pins in things. So one, the hell is the exact opposite. It's when the crowd goes mad, it breaks bad, it kills, it smashes, it breaks. And then God is the exact opposite of that. It's expansive, joyful, uplifting,
and unifying. And unifying, right? So it has that, yes, it's the proper unity. That's another way. These are definitions, right? They're not statements. They're not descriptive statements about God. They're definitions. They're definitions. That's a very, very different thing. So imagine that there is a spirit that properly unifies. That's the monotheistic God. That's the God of Abraham. What is that? Well, who can say? No one can say. We can tell stories about it, and of course the biblical stories are stories about that. That's exactly what they are. But the fastest way in for modern people, I would say, is the route you took. If you don't believe in good, well, try investigating evil and see what you make of that. And then start to understand what that means for you and see what that does to you. Is one of the things I realized, because I started studying malevolence a very long time ago now. It's 50 years for me. It's a long time. And I certainly became convinced that in some ways there was nothing more real than malevolence. Now, there are arguable contenders. Pain, for example, is a contender. But if malevolence is an undeniable reality, and there's a price to be paid for denying that, by the way, because you turn the Nazi catastrophe into just a matter of opinion, right? If you don't believe in something like the ultimate reality of evil, it's just, well, the Nazis went about things a slightly different way. Who's to say what's right or wrong? And well, the opposite of that, there's an opposite of that, right? It's wherever you go. If you travel as far away from enjoying Auschwitz as you can possibly go. And people might say, well, no one enjoyed Auschwitz. It's like, really? What was the sign over Auschwitz? The joke. Work will make you free. People joked. You tell me they didn't enjoy it. Slayer. If you think that people didn't enjoy Auschwitz, you know nothing about human beings and nothing about yourself. If you think you couldn't have enjoyed it, you know nothing about yourself. And that's terrifying and should be. And that it can lead you. You see, that leads you because it gives you something solid to stand on. Something terrible and solid, but nonetheless, something motivating. Because maybe you decide that you don't want to go to hell, so to speak, and maybe you don't want to bring everyone you love along with you. Maybe you don't even want to bring everyone you hate along with you. That's a good realization. Better to redeem than to damn.
You changed my life with a simple idea, and that simple idea was that I could find myself as the guard in Auschwitz and not as the person hiding Anne Frank in my attic.
You know, 5 of them.
Yeah, exactly. And that scared me.
You saw that in
because... Yes.
I mean, God, the thing, it just terrified me in Toronto. It was something remarkable to behold, all these butter won't melt in your mouth, hyper-moral Canadians, you know, secure in the fact that they're nothing, for example, like the warmongering Americans to the South, delighting in the fact that they could turn their neighbors over to the state with a phone call, willing to wear those goddamned masks for the rest of their life just to have the privilege of being a state informant. Brutal. Awful.
So I look at that and I see myself and I say, okay, the line between which way I go on that runs through my heart. This is where I get obsessed with the idea of, okay, I'm going to be possessed by ideas. Which ideas do I want to invite in?
That's why Christ says that the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed. It takes root and grows inside you, like all ideas. Ideas are alive. Richard Dawkins figured this out, although he didn't take it to its logical conclusion. A living idea is a meme. All ideas are alive. And what do I mean by that? Well, they're instantiated in your nervous system. Like, how are they not alive? How do they not have a perspective? How do they not have an aim, a set of motivations, the desire to communicate? Even Nietzsche said, every drive attempts to philosophize in its own spirit. Nietzsche knew these things. And then you do, you incorporate, you take in, you eat. Sometimes things you shouldn't. That's the eternal sin of mankind. To incorporate even the forbidden fruit. What's the forbidden fruit? Knowledge of good and evil. What does that mean? You don't get to make the moral rules. And that's where Nietzsche went wrong. We can't create our own values. We have to abide by the intrinsic order of the cosmos. Richard Dawkins knew this too. He wrote a paper stating that biological organisms had to be a microcosm of the environment in which they evolved. It's like, okay, Dr. Dawkins, how far are you willing to take that? A human being's a personality. Does that mean that the cosmos is a personality? Is it something you have a relationship with? That's how we're adapted. So he can take that however he wants. The avatar of the spirit of enlightenment rationality, right? That's a snake that's now devoured its own tail. So that's why the Enlightenment is coming to an end.
Yes, we're for sure going to talk about that. Before we get to that, though,
How did you notice that I said that?
You gave a speech. I listened to a lot of your stuff because you helped me think through complicated ideas. I'm a big believer in that by speaking, you're speaking so that you can understand, not necessarily so you can be understood. So I see people that I see have the bravery to actually think out loud and process through. Also, for anybody watching, they will probably have heard me talk about this before, and I was telling you this before we started rolling. I was very confused when you went from the internet's dad, you got very sick, and you came back as like the internet's theologian, and I could not figure out what that change was. But as somebody who I had seen be a very careful thinker, I thought, okay, what if there was something here that I'm just not understanding yet? Let me try to map it. And I don't know that you and I see this the same way. I don't know is the honest answer, and I hope we figure that out today. But I know that you have clarity of thought and there's internal consistency. And so that means that there's probably something very useful because you know what you're aiming towards. And this is the anchor we have to address before we can move on.
Away from.
Yes, yes. Which, to your point about sin is missing the mark, but that implies that there is, because I would say sin is hitting the wrong mark. If
That's
I had
another way
to
of looking
push
at
it,
Well, that's a deeper form of sin.
because that's what I think is happening right now. I really think you're the canary in the coal mine. What's happening to you with them trying to strip your license, even though I do hate the way you tweet, I'm not going to lie. But I listened to that whole episode where your friends were like, Jordan, please stop. I was literally at my house like, Jordan, please. Anyway, you should have the right to be a fully correct. You should be a fully fledged human being. You should not have to answer to us, even though as people who have gotten so much value out of the way that you think through problems, that's what we're responding to. Anyway, so the thing we have to get to is I think sin is hitting the wrong mark. I think people are hitting that mark in spades. I think you've become the lightning rod of that.
Pride.
That's why we worship pride.
Well, pride has always been regarded as the ultimate sin.
Before we go down that path, let me string this whole idea together. You're the canary in the coal mine because.
Why would that be? I wonder.
Because you won't shut up about things that people who believe. Because I take the stance that totalitarians actually are trying to do good. Some of them aren't, but I think that makes it too easy to push them away. Assume that they are just possessed by the wrong idea, and so they believe I know what's best. I legitimately know what's best for humanity.
Yeah, but that's the problem.
I get it. Bear with me.
Know.
And you are.
Who's the I that knows? Just out of curiosity.
In that statement,
that's the question.
I'm saying I know how wrong that can go. Those people are saying they think they have identified the social structure that will lead to a utopia.
They identified their I with the spirit of totalitarianism that has possessed them.
They haven't gotten that far.
They don't.
They may not even be smart enough to get that far, which is a whole other thesis I have about the complexity of ideas, which I think is a big part of what causes this problem. Is people cannot think through these incredibly complicated ideas. So they need bumper stickers. You give them a bumper sticker.
They need parables.
Ooh, you're trying to make it positive again. People will take a bumper sticker long before they will take a parable.
Bumper stickers. Yes,
way
that's
more
true.
complicated.
Yes. It's, you know what slogan means?
Yes, I know. I don't know what it means.
It's from the Welsh. Slug Garum. It means battle cry of the dead.
Why of the dead?
Because slogans are dead words. And they're
like as in
they're
dead rock wood?
They're brandished by the army of the dead that would rather drag the living into the pit than allow their living to prevail. It's battle cry of the dead. It's the army of the dead speaking through the mouths of people that use slogans.
Okay, I'm going to translate that.
Yeah.
You said earlier that.
You know how Solzhenitsyn talked about people who were possessed by an ideology, right? And their words had no personal relationship to them. They were merely mimicking an ideology. All of the communists said exactly the same thing. There's nothing alive about that if everyone is saying exactly the same thing. Well, because, and this is, I suppose, where the left has something accurate perverted. There's a diversity and a vitality and originality in living speech that's not there in the land of cliche and slogan. That's why you can't listen to people. Like when I listen to ideologues talk, it's just buzzing. I can't even hear it. My mind goes elsewhere instantly. There's nothing about it that's compelling. There's nothing that's gripping or
because they're
inspiring.
not testing the idea against feedback.
There's multiple reasons for because the speech is an indication that while they're speaking, they're not treading the golden path.
What's the golden path?
It's the path that grips attention and is inspiring.
Okay, I have to say, you can give me space. I need to say this.
That's fine.
All right, so
I'm not trying to speak elusively.
I know. You and I just use such different language, and I think it will be very useful for people to hear the same things said in like a Rosetta Stone way.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so I've heard you talk about this a lot. When you go out and do your talks, part of what makes them so captivating is you are actually taking a living idea that you are trying to explore, golden path.
Yeah.
It's not rigid dogma. It is an idea you want to find the truth of. And so you go out in front of a crowd to assess whether they're taking it in, what kind of silence, perfect. And so that idea is living in as much as it is not rigid, it is not fossilized. You want it to be tested.
It's not predetermined, it's not dogmatic. Right, that's right. That's why it's not dead. It's not already formulated. It's not a corpse. It's something alive that's happening right then and there, right? Right. And that's something that only spontaneous speech can manage. Even books suffer from the lack of that. Now, books have their utility. In a book, when you read a book, you can deeply investigate an idea, but it does risk a kind of death, the death of the words on the page, because they're not as finely attuned to the demands of the situation, the specific situation, as a spontaneous speech can be when it's at its highest, because it's of the moment. That notion that, that's the third person of the Trinity, right? That spirit that possesses you when you speak in an inspired manner. That's a symbolic representation of the living spirit of exploration in relationship to the highest goal. That's really what it is. And so, you might say, well, what do you have to be aiming at if your goal is to speak in that manner? And the answer is, well, you have to be doing your best for the best in you and other people. That has to be your aim. And then you have to speak truth insofar as you're capable, and that will do the trick. And there's no difference between that and the paraclete that Christ left in the Gospels behind after his departure. It's a reflection of the idea of the Holy Spirit. It's the baptismal spirit. It's the Spirit of God that moves upon the waters at the beginning of time. It's the creative manifestation of the structure that extracts habitable order from chaos. It's all of those things in its living form. That's why it's inspiring. Why else would it be inspiring? Why else would it attract and gleam, right? Or have motive force, right? I mean, and you can think of it instinctually if you want. It speaks biologically. Those are words that speak to the deepest core of your being, materially, for that matter, because everything stacks up. If everything's unified in the highest place, everything stacks up. And that is the case.
That to me is the final test of an idea's validity, if it will stack and if it will point you to things that are true.
That's technically true, by the way, because the reason that you have five senses is so that your orientation occurs as a consequence of things that are stacked. When all five senses report the same thing, you have a reasonable assurance that what you're seeing corresponds sufficiently to reality so you won't perish. Right now, that isn't enough, because then I'll take the evidence of my senses and contrast it with the evidence of yours from your slightly different perspective, and then we'll do that collectively. We're doing a lot of stacking in order to filter the infinite sufficiently so that we can model it well enough to move forward. A lot of stacking. And that is, there's a technical branch of psychometrics, construct theory, that psychologists have developed to help distinguish between concepts that are real from concepts that aren't, like the phrenological concepts, for example, that people used to use to map the hypothetical functions of the brain. There was something in that idea, but they weren't real concepts. How do you know if a concept is real? Well, you can measure it using multiple different instruments at different times and in different places and get the same report. Something like that.
Now, more than ever, the ability to see through the chaos of the traditional news media is an absolute necessity. Biased narratives, selective reporting, all of it obstruct the kind of informed, critical thinking that all of us should be striving for. That's why I have to tell you about Ground News. Ground News compiles stories from across the global political spectrum, giving you every angle so you get the full picture. You can see a story like the one here, which has been covered by more than 260 sources. What I find really interesting is that 36% of the sources lean left, 33% are in the center, and 31% lean right. Now, these are based on ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations, and if you keep scrolling, you'll see every article about that topic. Another cool feature is the blind spot feed, which shows you stories that are disproportionately covered by only one side of the political spectrum. Go to ground.news/Tom and sign up. Subscriptions start at just $1 a month, or you can get 40% off unlimited access via the Vantage subscription. Check out Ground News and stay informed, guys. I'm very impressed by this service. I hope you guys will give it a shot.
Right.
This is why the case against you scares me. This is people with dead ideas, enslaving others with bumper stickers, slogans that they can hold on to, that makes them feel morally virtuous. But
they're simple and morally virtuous. Yes, it's a viciously tempting combination. Right?
Correct.
One idea explains everything. Plus, once you brandish that idea, all your moral work is done. Right? Very, very tempting. That is definitely the temptation of a deadly slogan, like from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. You can destroy the world with that dead weapon. Yeah. And we did a pretty good job of trying that. And we're not done.
Apparently, yeah. So this is why I think you have to be, from their lens, you have to be silenced, because you force that idea to compete for validity in the realm of ideas. And if it really is ideas, then that's all we have.
If it doesn't compete in the realm of ideas, it will compete in the realm of flesh.
Yes.
Right? Everyone needs to know that.
And its unwillingness to compete in the realm of ideas is a signal that it's not valid, which is why they can't, but this is exactly why Biden saying I'm not going to debate scares the life out of me, because that's what you do when you can't win. Like, if you know your ideas are more compelling, you step to the mic all day long.
Or if you know that you should subject them to debate, so if you're wrong, you could learn. Right? Because maybe that's even what you want in a leader. You don't necessarily need a leader who's right, because God help you. You're not going to find that, but you could at least find one who is willing to put his ideas to the test to discover where he's wrong. That's a leader. That's someone with courage. Like, that's someone willing to kill the father, in a sense, to kill the tyrannical father, because the tyrannical father is the presumption of your own dead ideas. Not psychologically speaking, that's the case. That's the giant that the hero slays in order to make the new world. Right? The dogma of the past, the dead dogma of the past. It might have even been valid at some point. But you want a leader who embodies that spirit and not necessarily the correct knowledge. You know, Piaget, Jean Piaget, the developmental psychologist, he knew this, is that the deepest truth is a proper formulation of the process by which truth itself is generated. Right? And that's what Piaget was trying to discover when he evaluated children.
Say that again.
The deepest, I don't know if I can say that again. The deepest truth is the representation of the process by which truth itself is generated. That's the hero story. It's a process. Truth is a process. Truth is a spirit, rather than a set of dead facts.
Why do people run from it?
Because it forces you to pick up your cross. I mean, really, obviously, like, why do people run is the question. Well, what do they run from? Pain and malevolence. Well, why? Well, it's obvious why. What's not obvious is how you could not do that. Well, you know, the entire biblical corpus is an analysis of why you shouldn't run. What would mean not to run? What it would mean if you fully ceased running. That's the story of Christ. The story of Christ is the story of a man, the man, let's say, who ceased running. That's what the story is.
Can I give you an alternate take that scares me so badly, and I think I'm right about this?
Okay.
I think
well, if it scares you, that's a good indication that you might be right.
Yeah. The big problem here is that to pick up a cross and be willing to suffer what Jesus suffered, you have to have a conviction that you're right, that hell awaits on the other side of not doing that. Most people cannot think through ideas that complicated and be certain enough that they'd be willing to be torn down.
Well, that's reflected to some degree. That's reflected to some degree in the structure of, especially the Catholic Church, and Dostoevsky pointed to that in the Brothers Karamazov. There's a scene in the Brothers Karamazov where Christ comes back to earth in the midst of the Spanish Inquisition, and he performs his miracles and goes about his spiritual business, goes about being the process of the word, and the Inquisitor comes and arrests him and throws him in prison. And then comes down in the middle of the night and says, look, you know, we don't need you around. You're a lot of trouble. We've taken your impossible message, your impossible demands, and we recast them so that flawed people can manage. And the last thing we need is you to show back up and destroy everything we've done to make what you had to say palatable, because people just can't manage it. It's too much. And Christ listens, and at the end, he kisses the inquisitor, who turns white and leaves, but he leaves the door open when he leaves. And that's a complicated answer to your question, but you are right in the sense that it's too much to ask, but you're wrong. And that people turn to lesser solutions, mediated solutions, like a belief in an external Christ, let's say. That's one way of thinking about it, rather than a joint belief in an internal and external Christ, which would be more comprehensive. And they turn to that instead of seeking out the whole adventure. The problem with that is, and this is the problem, is that you don't have a choice about your cross exactly. You only have a choice about how you will bear it, because death and hell are coming for you. And that's that. There's no escape from that. And so all you can choose is the manner in which you confront it. And you can do it voluntarily, wholeheartedly, in good faith, with courage, or you can do it any of the insane multiplicity of other ways that clamor for your attention. That's right. My name is Legion, right? There's a reason for that, right? So the Christian message fundamentally is that your best bet, all things considered, and truly all things considered, is to take the whole burden on. Like eyes wide open, right? That's what Abraham does, for example, when he goes on his great adventure. And that's what Job does. There are precursors to this idea in the Old Testament stories. It's in some ways fully revealed. That's a good way of thinking about it in the New Testament stories. So Christ's claim is that he embodies the Spirit in the Old Testament. You think that's right? I think that's the simplest explanation. And it has to do, you said already that people can allow ideas to possess them. So what ideas should you allow to possess you? Well, the insistence in the Judeo-Christian tradition is that you should invite in the spirit of your ancestors, the unified, monotheistic, creative, loving, kind, truthful spirit of your ancestors. Something's coming in, or a multitude of things. How about a diversity of things? How about a rainbow of things, or a plurality of things? But under some united flag, the union of diversity? I don't think so. It's no wonder that we believe in the union of diversity when we believe that a man can be a woman. If we believe those things, there's nothing we won't swallow. No camel too big to go down our throats. No totalitarian lie we won't rush to embody. So you asked earlier, where are we headed? Like, every single person is making up their mind about that. Well, they always have, but it's really evident at the moment. And it's going to become a lot more evident than it is.
Because people are moving in the wrong direction?
No, they've always done that, but not this fast.
Interesting.
All right, because we're in a runaway cycle of transformation. And
yeah, I think we're in a positive feedback loop where social media allows simplistic ideas.
We're in a lot of positive feedback loops.
Yeah, the only solution I see is
that's the dragon that eats its own tail. The positive feedback loop.
We interpret the Ouroboros differently.
Well, it's many things, because it is a symbol of chaos, but one of the things it is a runaway positive feedback loop.
Interesting. I see that as what ends up happening when you don't have the right foundational model.
Yeah, definitely.
That you can't make progress because your core foundation is such that you eat your own progress.
Yeah,
Through incompetence is the easiest way to think of it. You have the wrong model. That's, to me, what the Ouroboros is about, which is the whole idea that you're saying about...
That's why it emerges when the father dies.
You know,
because it's if the father is a corpse, the Ouroboros makes itself manifest. The Mesopotamians knew this. So the Mesopotamian gods killed their father, Apsu, and tried to live on his corpse. Well, that's what we're doing when we mouth slogans. We're trying to live on the corpse of the past. And instead of embodying its living spirit, they slay the past. They have no regard for the past, which is also what we're doing, by the way. They slay the past and attempt to inhabit its corpse, like Geppetto in The Whale. It's the same idea. And Tiamat shows back up. She's the dragon of chaos. And her goal is to destroy everything. And that's one of the precursors. That idea is one of the precursors to the flood myth. And the word Tiamat is, they say, etymologically cognate with the word tohu vabohu. And that's the chaos out of which God makes order at the beginning of time. All these ideas are linked.
So if you inhabit dead ideas, you will bring back chaos.
Of course, the dead ideas can no longer sustain you in your active contending with the present. This happens in The Lion King. What happens when Scar takes over the Pride? What happens when Scar takes over Pride Rock? Pride Rock. It's so comical. Scar takes over Pride Rock. Well, why? Well, he's scarred. That's the first thing. He's intellectually arrogant, obviously. And the whole kingdom turns into a wasteland. A dry, sterile, desert wasteland. That's always the case. It's always been the case. And we're seeing the archetypal outlines more clearly now because things are changing at a ever accelerating rate. And so God only knows. What does Jonathan Pageau say? Giants will walk the earth once again. They already are.
What is the Enlightenment? Why do we have to get to the other side of it? Or why do you think maybe we already are?
The Enlightenment is the belief that the material world speaks for itself. And it's not true. You have to see facts through a lens of value. The postmodernists got that right. That's why we are in the culture war to some degree, is the postmodern critique was correct. We see the world through a story. And the facts now indicate that. I've talked with Carl Friston, for example, one of the world's great neuroscientists. Many people know this now. I asked Friston, is an object a micronarrative? He said yes. So
because
even
we have to understand what to do with it.
Function, you bet. You don't just see the world. You see the value of the world. And you don't see the world and infer the value. You see the value. You see the value. And the implicit structure of your unconscious is the matrix of value through which the world reveals itself. And properly formulated, that matrix has a multidimensional narrative structure that's coherent, that's reflected in the structure of the biblical stories. And we know that. Well, we say, well, what's the foundational document of Western civilization? Well, obviously, it's the Bible. Like, forget the theology. Historically, well, what does that mean? Well, it means it's the seed from which your perceptual matrix grew. You're a more or less coherent echo of the biblical corpus. That's what you are. And the more you know of the stories, the hyperlinked stories, the more fully fleshed that incarnation, internal incarnation becomes. The Bible was written in consort, you might say, obviously with the function of the human nervous system, both individually and collectively. It was woven together over thousands of years and also evolved to match the structure of our memories, all of that, and the structure of our attention. So the postmodernists, when they realized that we saw the world through a story, which was a brilliant discovery and was made in many disciplines at the same time, by the way, they jumped to the next question, which was, well, if we see the world through a story, what is the story? And they said, well, it's power and its twin sister, its evil twin sister, hedonism, but power. They were Marxists. It's all about power. So have it your way. Play with fire. See what happens.
A powerful business coach, millionaire mentor, a multi-talented serial entrepreneur, Africa's most sought-after sales guru, the boss of sales superstars, internationally acclaimed best-selling author,